Good morning, afternoon, evening, wherever you are, and welcome to the latest edition of FreeThought Hour, our weekly chat show where we have a guest and hopefully we have a co-host. Tercia, I can see you're in backstage, but I don't know whether your microphone or camera's working. I know you have problems in South Africa with electricity supply and sometimes with your connectivity as well. So I'm going to leave you in backstage for the moment until you get yourself sorted. And I'm going to introduce our guest of this evening, who is David McKnight. Welcome, David. How the devil are you?
I'm fine, thank you. And yes, you are a bit devilish, I suppose. And I've asked you and Tercia too, if she can hear me. That a couple of jokes in the bag at the end of the show might help. So giving you time to serve some.
My jokes are too filthy for a family show, I'm afraid.
Anyway.
So, David, while we're waiting for Tercia to get connected, can you tell me, how did you get to be the David McKnight you are today?
Well, I would just like to say a little word about what this evening is about. It really is about my Facebook website, Humanists for Science. And I mentioned on the title that somebody might want to get rid of religion and maybe they could use science. But I've no intention anyway of doing anything with religion or doing anything but discussing it and possibly using a bit more science. It's going to take a long time to get what's in my mind in place, a really long time, because nobody's listened so far. And I'm very grateful for you listening and even discussing it. And I'm really enjoying it right from the word go.
Good.
Okay,
good.
How did I get to be me?
Can I just respond to what you've just said? Because
sure.
I concur. I like you. I don't want to be heavy-handed and ban religion or make it illegal or anything like that. I think that the way forward is the teacher way forward. It's to explain to people how to think critically, what rational decision making is like, and then let them make the right decision for themselves. And here she is, Tercia.
Hello. Hello.
I am so sorry, gentlemen. I have to apologize.
We've all been late. We've all been late already, Tercia.
I've been crawling under my desk. I've been doing all sorts of shenanigans. I'm going to be stiff tomorrow. I'm so sorry. And to our audience who's watching, I apologize. Things have just not been going according to plan in South Africa and in the Duplessis household. I'm so pleased to meet you. Is it David?
David, not a Dave. I am not a Dave.
Okay. David.
Yeah.
Hello, John. I'm sorry that I'm late.
Understood. But listen, you've already given us too much information. We just don't want to know about your weird South African under the desk perversions, under the desk.
Under the desk, plugging in things, plugging out things, electricity, computers. So I'll spare you.
Kindly keep that all to yourself, please.
Oh, how boring.
Okay,
Tercia, I've already asked John to have some jokes ready, if you've got any. Get the family working on it or something, just for the end of the show. It's just
jokes.
Just to test out a theory.
You know, jokes are a very serious matter in South Africa. We don't do jokes here.
Oh, okay. There must be.
Absolutely not.
No, there must be. They're hidden away somewhere.
Can I give you a joke right now, then, David?
Surely. Well, to get us warmed up, yeah.
Okay,
I think we are already, really.
So you know that condoms are supposed to enable safe sex, don't you?
That's what they're for.
Yes. So my friend Dave was wearing one, not you, another friend, Dave. He was wearing one, but it wasn't safe because he was beaten up by her husband. There was nothing safe about that sex.
Right.
They're missold.
Right.
I don't know if this counts as a joke, but I have a little homeschool tutoring center with a partner of mine, and one of our students has a very dry sense of humor, and he loves to he'll come up to you and say, "Ma'am, what day is your favorite color?"
Yeah.
It sounds like an Irish joke, though.
Well, David, you were telling us about how you came to be the David McKnight that you currently are.
Okay. And then how I became a humanist. Fine. Yes, I've just got to apologize for my family too, because I have driven them crazy with what I'm doing in preparation for tonight and running Humanists for Science. I really want to apologize. I started really on the journey to get to this because my family do suffer from anxiety, and I'm sure you've got people in your families too which do. And I left teaching quite early, but I'm jumping the gun there. I'll get up to that point because I was born in the Isle of Man. Now, not many people know where that is, but we have a particular characteristic of our own. And I've only just lost my Manx accent. Basically,
do you call it sorry, David, do you call it a man's accent?
A what?
Manx.
You call it
a Manx, M-A-N-X. That's the name of the people, the Manx.
I never knew that.
Sorry?
I never knew that.
Oh, right. Well, now you're learning, you see. But that is important to me because it's influenced by Scotland, Ireland, England, and a little bit of Wales. And it's formed itself into its own culture. We have our own culture. And it's a very small island. We like to be quirky to get people there. And it's a very beautiful place to visit and so on. And with it goes the fact that the island was actually sold and exchanged with very rich people, between very rich people as a bet, for a horse race or something. And the actual Derby horse race started on the island and then moved to England. So we've got a history where we didn't know who was going to govern us from, one year to the next. And therefore, we often tend to put things off. And that's got into me as a person. And I've left this sort of explanation of Humanists for Science, right until I really should give it up very soon. But I'm going to keep it going for as long as I can. I was educated in comprehensive education. Being a small island, it meant that experiment at the time could take place there and not affect bus travel and everything else that goes with getting people between different types of school. So I was brought up in comprehensive education, and that has affected my teaching style.
David?
Yeah.
John might know, and our viewers from the UK, but I have no idea. What exactly do you mean with comprehensive education?
It means basically that all the children on the island went to the same type of school. Although there were two private schools as well, all the secondary age children went to one type of school.
Yeah.
And that meant a big leveling down and meeting pupils of all sorts.
Yeah. Tercia, this came about because the 1944 Education Act introduced what was known then as a bilateral system, in that the children at the end of their junior school were set through an 11+ examination, and the top 10% went to a specially academic school called a grammar school. I'm a product of that. And the bottom 90% didn't go to that grammar school. They went to a secondary modern school, and they got a less academic education.
So where does yours fit in, David? Would yours be the comprehensive? Would that be sort of the less academic one? Or was it totally different? It's totally different.
No,
Historically-
everybody went to the same school.
Okay.
Historically, going back to the bilateral system, a lot of people were aggrieved that their children didn't get the best school. And so the politicians followed the desires of the electorate and bunged everybody into one school. In future, the comprehensive school.
I get that. Sorry. Thank you. I understand now. That's quite important to know.
That's what we have over most of the UK now.
Yes. Okay. Got that. Thanks. Continue, David. Sorry.
Anyway, that comprehensive school got me to university, the University of Liverpool, which was the nearest across the ocean. It also got me to a PGCE, because at this comprehensive school, I'd already decided I wanted to be a chemistry teacher. The chemistry teacher actually inspired me, if you like, absolutely by his attitude and the way he did education. So I got my PGCE, the training to teach, and I immediately went to Crewe Grammar School, where I met my wife, Christine, who was also Manx, but I'd never met her on the island, and our romance started in and around Chester, while I was at Crewe, being my first post. After that, we got married, and the very same month, we travelled out to Singapore for a term of service of 3 years to Singapore. And I had great religious experiences out there, not to me, but by going around the religious festivals and seeing. I went to two Malaysian weddings, and we went on a tour around there. That was my world education, really. But we always knew we wanted to come back, so we came back. And I was actually lucky enough to get a post without traveling back for an interview. And that post happened to be a school that had been chosen to disseminate Nuffield A-level chemistry.
Oh, yeah.
The new Nuffield course. And so I became a Nuffield teacher, and I helped in the team that went round to other schools to spread the word. And a colleague of mine and mine, we wrote a book of exercises for that course, and I sing its praises whenever I can. Yeah. But I've only recently met somebody who was a pupil who went through Nuffield A-level course and was able to talk about because once the initial money had run out, then that was it. You were just left with that to get on. And there was a special exam as well. And I developed an interest in exams, and I would have liked to be working for the exam board, but I didn't manage that.
Well, so, I did a bit of exam board working, but we ought to say what the Nuffield brought in, because up until then, science teaching, particularly chemistry teaching, had been teacher demonstration based, whereas the Nuffield brought in pupil practical experiments.
Engagement with the pupil,
yes.
Lots of modelling,
yes.
A course book so that they didn't have to sit writing notes,
yes.
and other things that chemistry teachers love to do. It was all done for you, but it was to give the engagement that is needed to solve some problems, particularly crystalline things and things like that. And I really enjoyed spreading the word.
Yes.
But I have jumped over my humanism, really, because the change to humanism happened first when I was training to be confirmed. I don't know whether you know that, Teresa. Confirmation, yeah?
Is it in the Anglican Church?
Yes, yeah. It was a Church of England. Yeah, and
we have the same. I grew up in the Reformed Church, which is Calvinist, and we have exactly the same. You have a confirmation.
Yeah. Well, I took it as a test, I tested God, if you like, and the many a Christian who would call me out for doing that. You just don't do that, do you? But I did, and by the time I was traveling over to university, I was thinking, I was doubting, I was getting towards it. And then at university, of course, I found Bertrand Russell. I happened to see an advert for a little magazine called The Plain Truth. Truth is never plain, is it? But it was called that. I really latched on to Bertrand Russell and other people of the same ilk, and that's how I really did. Together with all the talks that you do in the evening with your mates and so on.
So, David, I need to know, if you don't mind, whenabouts was this? Was this 1970s,
1960?
Okay.
Yeah, 1956 was my A level, and 61 was my first year at university, and then I went on to teach in Crewe, where I met Christine. Yes.
Okay, so would you say that you can just answer briefly that the counterculture of the 60s, that did that play any role in your road to humanism?
Oh, I think so. But I've told you I was at University of Liverpool, and I completely missed the Beatles.
Oh, shame! I'm so sorry.
I have that claim to fame. Of course, we go back to Liverpool now, and it's a wonderful visit. Liverpool has transformed over what I've known, and so on, and it's still a great place to be. And we're going to see the Eurovision there very soon.
Yes.
Okay. So there you go. I would like you to think of me as an agnostic humanist. I actually think that every scientist has got to be an agnostic. I know it's a choice, but why would you set out on a journey to discover something if you knew the answer already? And I've got so much from actually being an agnostic. I don't see it as a final resting place. I see the change between religions as a journey and a spectrum, if you like, and you keep changing day by day as you hear things about religion or humanism to push you in one direction or the other. But I think I'm going to keep the direction of humanism, and I actually follow a forum on the American site, agnosticism, agnostic.com. And I get so much from that. I get some English people. I get people who are prepared to discuss and tell each other what's wrong with each other. And there's a point system to encourage you. And they have ways of actually shortening the discussions. If people see it's getting too convoluted, they stop. And I want a forum for everybody.
Right. Well,
I don't know whether you ever used one.
I'm going to present my point of view, which is slightly different from yours, because it seems to me that you are pitting theism and atheism as certainty opposites, polar opposites.
Yes.
And agnosticism in the middle.
I don't think it's a fence-sitting exercise.
Good.
Yeah. First of all, you get splinters if you do, but I see it as a spectrum, and I see the word atheist as a milestone, a very important milestone. You're in different territory once you've passed it, but to make too much of it, I don't think is necessary.
Well,
yes, we celebrate passing that milestone, and for a long time afterwards, you use the word, but it's a journey. I mean,
indeed, yes,
it's a journey.
Last week,
can I chime in here, because
sure,
I think my view is even more is it another opinion? John and I think what I'll say, you'll probably agree with John. I don't recall that we've had this exact conversation, but I don't see atheism and agnosticism as antonyms, nor do I see them as synonyms. I see atheism as speaking to what one believes, and I see Gnosticism or agnosticism as speaking to what one knows. Therefore, as far as the existence of a god or gods, I would identify as an agnostic atheist. And I think we need to be more exact in our speech, because as far as the existence or non-existence of a supernatural being or beings, I identify as agnostic atheist. As far as whether the earth is round or flat, I'm definitely a Gnostic believer that the earth is not flat. The earth is definitely a sphere.
Yeah, I think we all agree on that.
Yeah. I'm sorry if you don't believe that, whoever's listening, but I'm convinced that it is so, and I think there's enough evidence to say that we can know that. And I think we need to be more specific in our speech when we use the words Gnostic, agnostic, or even we need to throw. We need to adjust how we use labels. I hate, for example, the question, what do you believe? To me, that is an absolutely nonsense question. It's like asking me, what is your favorite day? What color is your favorite day of the week? Because I can't answer that unless you say, what do you believe about cats? That's my kitten that I've renamed John. She's now Demonica. Or then I can tell you many things that I believe about cats. So the question, what do you believe, without some qualifier, to me is absolutely meaningless. I don't know. I'd like to hear what you say about that, David. Oh, look, sorry.
Well, we are a cat family. We are a cat family.
Do you understand any Afrikaans? My tablet's on my desk, and I have a glass of water, and I just heard a thump, and I thought the cat had overturned the glass of water, and I said in perfect Afrikaans, I said, "Oeh, bliksem," which.
Luckily, I don't know what that means, but I'm too young to hear those words anyway.
I'm very sorry. I can't say any words in Manx. All right, it has got a language, and I can say "canastesiu," which means "how are you?" And
I'm good.
You're supposed to say "brow brow," right?
So brow.
That's the end of my Manxness. Right. But what we're all talking about now, surely, is a perception. And we can change our perceptions. And I would like to change people's perceptions of science. That's my mission, really, in a word. And I came across a film, which I'll mention a little bit later on. But I wonder if, John, we could move to the second slide. Could we do that?
Sure, I'll have to reload it. I'm sorry, it appears to have dropped out of my. Hang on, where's it gone?
Our cats, Tertia, are very sweet, very well controlled, and they go to bed by themselves when they feel like it, and we close the kitchen door on them, and then we get a good night's sleep. They don't go out, I'm afraid, and so some birds do get killed and mice in the day. And we regret that. And I did try and persuade my wife to keep them in all day and all night, but no, they must have their freedom, mustn't they? So we have great sympathy for cats.
So do I. And the one that I have is a teenager, and she's absolutely crazy at the moment. Future scoping, basic science.
Yeah. Could we have the next slide, please? It's that one. I just wanted you to look at it, and it was intended to be a lifestyle and to put everything on the page because I do like overviews. Are you familiar with overviews? I like when things get collected. Some newspapers do very good overviews of what's happening, and it aids understanding, doesn't it?
I absolutely agree.
It's meant to be a grid. You can read it downwards or left to right. But I wanted you to think about There's a word missing up there. And I wondered if you could spot what the word should be if we're talking about both science and humanism. Any thoughts?
I'm reading and I'm thinking, John, you go ahead first, because I definitely have something to say.
I was trying to run them together and make Simonism.
Say that again, John.
Simonism. I was running the two words. I was crushing them together.
Right. Yes. Yeah. Well, the word is compassion. I mean, I believe that about humanism and what we can do for people. And if they don't know what to do, they better mix it with science to find out about themselves, mostly. So what I did put in was the word kindness there somewhere. Yeah, kindness. Yes. and compensation. I don't know whether compensation is something that's in your religion. I mean, South Africa wants compensation for all the things that happen and so on. You use the word compensation, but do you use the word compassion in your beliefs?
Well, I'll have to say I believe that compassion is essential to leading a purposeful. One has to be compassionate to be a human being that adds value to whatever one does. I believe in compassion as a value. I just, David, I think I understand. I agree 100% with everything. And I like the question mark that you have: reject and then distractions, politics and philosophy. So I find that interesting. And to a certain extent, I think I know what you mean, but I don't like to see that we should reject philosophy. And depending on what, because I think philosophy is the basis of all science. I think it's important because, so I would like to, I definitely think that pseudoscience should be rejected. And I absolutely love the conclusion, no human left out or neglected, because to me, if we can do that, then the world should be a better place. So I just think, I think politics is a science. I don't, if you mean by politics the way politicians act in the world, then definitely politics is a terrible force. But if one goes back to the original meaning of the word politics, which refers to how we run societies, then I think it's important that we study that and that we figure out better ways to run our societies and how we interact with one another. So to me, it's about maybe clarifying some of these ideas, because depending on what one means, the outcome is different. I don't know, what do you guys think about that?
I am all with you for clarification. And I think we've really got to come together. You know, there is many different non-beliefs as there are Christian beliefs. There's too much diversity, and how we get together will have to be decided. But unless we do, we are not going to make progress getting religion and science together, and religion and non-belief together. When I was a leader of a local group, I did join the interfaith group, and I was actually sent on a mission to find out about what the scene was like with regard to religion in Reading, and I learned a lot. Now, the people who are running the local group now are not following up the investigation into interfaith and talking to people of a different faith in order to get everybody to get together. I don't believe things like you can't, humanists are like cats, they can't be herded. I don't believe that. I think a cat will go to a food bowl every time, and you can get them in one place. And I think humanists can also, and secularists as well. We can all be in one place. I was on the trustees of the Humanist Board some time ago in the 70s, and we had a joint meeting between humanists and secularists, but there was no real, even sight of talking together. Now, particular local groups are doing that. And I would like Reading to do that, but the people who are running the local group, I'm not on the committee at the moment, they are running a mine. Now, it's a new group, so people are frightened to call themselves humanists, and to get them to say, well, you're really an interfaith would be very difficult. I realize the difficulties. But I hope that's given you an idea of how I think about things.
David,
yeah.
Sorry, John, I just want to ask, are you a proponent of the non-overlapping magisteria idea?
I think it's a choice, isn't it? It's a choice whether you govern by opposing each other or by cooperating with each other. And we have chosen to oppose each other in England anyway. And
only recently, we were very united during the Second World War, and for about a decade or two afterwards.
I grew up in that feeling.
The reason for that was because there was a major adversary, Hitler, and nothing unites more than adversity. We all fought together to defeat the obvious, horrible enemy. But I have screened this shot of these apes. I'm not sure where they're from, but
I think they're monkeys, John. I think they're monkeys. They look like monkeys to me. Are monkeys apes?
I've only just noticed that.
No. Monkeys and apes are separate because monkeys have tails and apes don't. But we can't see that from this picture. But so I don't know what sort of creature they are from that. I haven't identified them, but I've posted it to demonstrate compassion, because I think that we have evolved it and we can't claim to be the owners of it. It's come up through our predecessors.
Absolutely. I've getting amazed at the time how it's flying. I mean, you two must be used to it by now. But I wonder if we could move on to the next slide.
Sure.
Or slide 2A, please.
2A, right. Okay.
I put these on the screen because if you want to talk about those, I will do so, but I'll give you some time to read through them. That's the sort of thing I've been doing on Humanists for Science. And many of them are very much in the future. All I could do to get people together was just publish some very interesting science stories and wait for people to click on it. It's like having a firework display to get people to gather around them. And there's nothing, as it were, practical and progressive that I really want to do starting yet. So I need more help now. And if somebody could eventually take over, I wouldn't leave before the transition was smooth. It would be great. And to try out some of these things, because we can show by example. We can show scientific method by example. We can video something that somebody actually saying, Eureka, I found a solution to that problem, and I've filmed the beginning of it, and I'm going to film the finding out, and I'm going to film the solution. And people will try and follow them if they see things that are part of their life.
Well, as we were talking before we started the show, David, technology has given everyone the power to present shows themselves.
Absolutely.
And the trouble with that power is it divides us into millions of individual live streamers, and it's very difficult to get a group of people on one stream. It's taken me a couple of years to get a reasonable group of people who are prepared to join me for shows, and I've had to show them what I've been doing in order to impress them enough to think this is worth joining in with. And just going out there with a net and trying to capture people is an almost impossible task. Some of our really good members have set up, since I recruited them, as it were, have set up their own channels, and now it's very difficult to get them to join us because they're doing their own, they're peddling their own cycle, you know. So, and this is the natural. Once you've got access to this sort of technology, who wouldn't be using it for their own messages?
I'm with you. I'm absolutely with you. And I think families are going to start buying this streaming software and using them more like they would use Zoom now. And there is a leap from Zoom to what you're using now, John. It is a definite improvement. And it's just going to go on improving. That's the nice thing about science. It is about improving.
Zoom and Teams and other softwares like that are meeting softwares, whereas StreamYard is a show software.
Absolutely, yeah.
The difference being that on Zoom, everybody in the call can be on the screen, and there's nobody able to see if they're not in the call. But in StreamYard, you can have people in the call and an entire audience elsewhere.
Yes, absolutely. So that's great. I want to get on to the middle part of my talk or my discussion by going on to the next slide, John. This one. This is an attempt to simplify scientific method. And I'm sure you know that as a teacher, John, that there are hundreds of these diagrams on the net, as you say, proliferating like mad and trying to get people to go their way. I wanted to do this by simplifying. And this is the simplest set, but it's a bit deceptive because I had a little card printed and the intention was to hand more of them out. It is asking what science is and asking what the best word would be. And I've chosen quite arbitrarily, really, other people will know better, the age 7. What would each of these words mean to a 7-year-old? Could they do a hypothesis? I don't think so, right? That would be difficult. And maybe we should put another word in. You've got the word question in, of course, but equally, I have left some words out so that people who look at it might suggest what should be in, something that every 7-year-old could be presented with. To actually start science together might keep people together, might help them to take more notice of definitions and things and the importance of definition. You might not use the word definition at age 7, but soon after you would have to have a discussion about it. Discussion is the way of learning. I'm absolutely convinced of that. And your little piece on Aristotle discussion, was it Aristotle? You put a little piece on discussion methods.
Did I?
Yeah.
I've done so
many. Yeah. Anyway, my ancient Greek is not very good, but this was one sort of initiative I tried to push. But it would need a proper university study on this one. And then it would bring us together in the basic phases to know that all of these things, which one in the science that I know you've done, which one of those do you find the most useful of the method?
Well, as a meaning of science, you mean?
Yeah, well, these are processes. It's difficult to explain science because it's a mixture of processes which cycle round.
I see what you mean. Yeah. Well, I think the word missing there is investigate.
Right. And you mean an empirical investigation, don't you? You mean something with apparatus and by using actual objects or materials and not just thinking about it.
Yes,
You could think through things with this card, and you could plan with this card.
Well, as a non-scientist, but as a teacher, I think I can shed some light, because both of you two gentlemen are in the, shall I call it, hard sciences, with you, David, being a chemist and John being a biologist. And so I don't know if you know, David, I'm also a teacher. And
yes, I do. Yeah.
Yes, but my field of speciality is literature, and something that if I have to, so I never took science. I left science as a subject. I stopped doing it as quickly as I could because I wasn't good at maths. And in fact, I had a mortal dread, and I still have nightmares where I have to write maths exams. And I think that is perhaps one of the things that we need to start by changing if we want to change people's perceptions about science, because many people fear science. I feared science as when I was 14 years old. I was mortally afraid of the subject science. And the reason that I was so afraid of it is because there was such a strong focus on the mathematics and the hypothesis and the research and the process. And in my later life, thanks to the internet mainly, I became enthralled with science through asking questions. And to me, the most important word, and I'm speaking here as a layperson who's not a scientist, who's not a trained scientist, but who has a passion for science and has a passion for teaching about science. And to me, the key word there is question. And I'm at so my own children are my daughter is studying veterinary science, and my youngest son is doing actually the Cambridge curriculum, and he has chemistry and physics. And so I'm somewhat familiar with the British curriculum as well. And the one thing that I lack is the basic curiosity in how do we know what we think we know. So to me, the beginning of the love of science is within the reach of each and every person, and I think it should be, and that's to question things. So why do we know
I
that?
I totally agree with you there, Tertia. I actually want to push this scientific method to cover everybody, even adults who need to work out what science really is and go through some sort of process. If we can do a common process, it will make it happen easier. If the parents can help teach the children together with something simple and basic like this, to go through a process. I mean, it's just the same thing as the Scottish saying, if at first you don't succeed, try again. It's the cyclic process, which eventually gets you to have more understanding. And if you go to a very difficult lecture, you actually hear some words that you can pick up and develop later. So it doesn't happen like a flash of lightning, your love of science, but I really want people to do their own science. I did try another website called Own Your Own Science. Taking possession of science, I think, is very important.
Okay.
And I didn't get any biology teaching except for the amoeba, right? We all get the amoeba, don't we? And I have diabetes. And when it struck me, I didn't know a carbohydrate from,
From a protein.
Absolutely.
Or from a hole in the ground, that's the expression.
From a hole in the ground, that's
okay.
Yeah, you see, so we've all got to work together. If we can get a common thing, so much the better. And if parents and children do it at the same time, it will actually ease the whole process, because you really do have to understand what's happening in the papers. You really do have to understand why we need tax. You really do. And any open plan discussion, not led by a strong person, I would hope that we could get through some discussion development by not having a leader. Now, that might break up because somebody just can't stand the sight of each other. But if we can tolerate each other enough to get some learning while we're all together about the same subject, I see that as progress. Now, I'm going to move on to a film which changed my life, really, on YouTube by a chap called Bo Lotto. I don't know whether you've ever seen that name.
Nope.
Nope.
I haven't made a slide about it, but I do beg you to look at it outside of this presentation. A film by Bo Lotto on TED, and it's called Science for Everybody, including kids.
How do you spell it?
Science for
No.
His surname, Bo.
Person's name.
The person's name is
B-E-A-U.
Yeah.
Bo.
It's on the next slide, actually. But I would like to talk about the one that's on the screen. His name is we got it. Yeah. And I hope people do get these books, because it changed my whole thinking about Science for Everybody. And if you just go back again, one of the most important parts of that is pointing out that the conditions for play, which are on the screen, are exactly the same as the conditions that will make good science. That realization changed my life. If you can celebrate uncertainty, that's what comedians use. They make you uncertain of some meaning, and then they put a meaning onto it, which you never ever thought of. And you laugh because you're relieved by getting some extra knowledge.
David, this is sorry, I have to interrupt because this is really interesting. The other thing that we have, the reason that we like to be frightened within safe boundaries, of course, but the reason people like horror movies and we like to do things like go for roller coaster rides is because there is something thrilling about that uncertainty. So while we and it's interesting that you say that that comedians do that, but horror movies and scary movies also do that, because our brains sort of get a kick. It thrills us. It's interesting that uncertainty to celebrate the uncertainty.
Absolutely, and if you can't get that open mind, which is what is really after the uncertainty of not knowing what you're going to do next. I'm sure each of you have been in situations where you were asked to do something by a superior that you had no idea how to do it when you went to bed that night. But by the time you got up, you had a few ideas of how to actually do it. So if you just don't worry about the uncertainty of what's coming next, it will come. And that's why we've got to keep things fluid. That's why people have got to handle apparatus that they've never seen before. And basically, what I think an ideal teaching situation is to have two groups of people, those who like to be told and those who can work it out themselves. Now, the comprehensive bit is that you have to put oodles of compassion into helping the people who have to work it out for themselves. And the people who like to be told will usually quite obediently follow suit anyway. They don't understand it, but they do what everybody else is doing. And teaching by example is really, really so important. And if you separate the two groups of abilities into two different schools, they never see what it's like to be with another citizen until they get to work for them, and then they start complaining to their boss because they don't know what to do, and the boss doesn't know how to train them into there. So we've got to keep education together, and we've got to get rid of grammar schools. I'm sorry if you've got a particular love for a particular grammar school, but I think comprehensive is the way forward. And science is, it's about improving everybody. It's about making everybody think and get totally involved and responsible. And finally, I'm getting a bit worked up here, so I'll try and cool down for the last few minutes. It's a question of persistence with compassion for everybody and keeping people together. It's about not letting people get upset that they're left behind. You do actually have to be left behind sometimes, and you can manage that. As an able person, you can usually, catch the next one that comes along. Can you go to the next slide, please? And then we'll have a bit more relaxation in the last few minutes.
Sure.
Oh, that's the books I'd like you to read. So we jumped a bit. Yeah. And this one is one of the books I happen to be a co-author in. It's a year 9 book. Does that mean anything to you, Tessia?
Yes, yes. Is it the year before they do IGCSE? Is that right?
That's right. Yeah. And it's a general science book, and I was given the task of illustrating how the periodic table was really formed in its essence. And I decided to do it. All I did was put a few squiggles on paper and a bit of text, and the artist took over and did that bit. It illustrates to me very well what I call educational cutting and pasting. You give out an activity in a mixed ability group where they have to cut things out and stick them in their own fashion. And that's an ideal sorting out and social activity. So whatever program that you get together, you have to have social groups around discussing things and the way forward. And okay. I'm going to try and relax now, as it's only about 5 minutes. The whole thing is that science lessons can be happier, and yes. We've got to work at them together. I was going to talk about programmed learning, which I took interest in when I first started teaching, but I haven't been able to keep up with it. And I think that is going to solve every teacher's problems. Programmed learning in schools will solve everything, including tsunamis and COVID and everything, because it's got to be remote teaching when it's necessary. Of course, close-up teaching when you can get to them, but you've not got to be forced into the situation where you've got to have mums getting involved in actually producing the lessons. So there's a lot of work for teachers to do together.
Can we explain programmed learning? What do you mean by that, David?
Well, I can give an example of it. It's a machine which will move in front of you by various media means. Statements, pause to reflect, test that you understood the other one, and then it keeps moving these in front of you, and you go at your own pace. It won't let you go further if you fail the test. So you've got complete control of their learning process. It was used by the RAF soon after the war to teach technicians how to service engines. Now, if it worked for the RAF, I can't see why teachers can't get in together to make it work. And an individual teacher could make a program. It's not the kids who are getting programmed, it's the machines who are getting programmed to do that sequence that we all know is necessary in learning. You have to have a reflection. You have to have somebody else's views of it. And we can put those in. And 2 people could work on this machine together, so they're mates, and they help each other work it out. So there's lots of things I could think of. And
do you know what?
Yes.
I think the machine already exists.
I'm sure it is. Yeah.
You know what? Do you know what I think you should get? We should set up a call after next week sometime, because all the things that you're describing is exactly what my partner and I do in our learning center.
Isn't that interesting? Yeah.
It's so interesting. And what you say about programmed learning, so the first mindset change is that you have to change the idea of testing. So a test it's like when you test your blood sugar if you're a diabetic. You don't fail or pass the test. The test is an indication, am I following my diet? Am I healthy? This idea of passing or failing is the first thing that has to change. So the entire way that you look at a test changes. You use the test as a measuring instrument, a true measuring instrument, and we use a platform. I don't want to advertise it, but we use a quiz platform that we design quizzes, and it's so nicely done that you can actually set up live quizzes. And I've done it with the kids in my class. We're 7 children at the moment, where I do a basic mental maths. It's just times tables and adding and subtracting. But I set it so that the kids, they have 30 seconds to answer the question, and they're competing against one another. So they love it because they can actually, they're sitting next to one another, but they're playing the game on their cell phones, and they're competing with one another, and they can knock one another out, and they can score extra, and they love it. And
that is a methodology, isn't it? So yes, you absolutely. Really are agreeing with me that we need
100%.
There could be dozens of methodology, but the more we can bring those together, and
yes.
the more we actually teach them, test them on people. They shouldn't be put out as a commercial thing. It must go through the government to make sure that we choose the right guinea pigs, and we only give them out if they've been tested on people. I'm getting things on my mobile phone now, which are using sections of programmed learning. They are guiding me through things which I don't understand because I haven't been trained as an adult to understand, and people are using all different things. If we could have uniformity in that, that would be great. And you could help out on Humanists for Science by criticizing some of the instructions that you get when you have to unblock the washing machine and things, because many of them are absolute rubbish. Yeah. I've just bought a new shower, and the instructions, it's a digital shower. It's not an electronic shower. It's a digital shower, and the instructions are translated into digits, and then it controls the temperature and everything. But the instructions are absolute rubbish, and so my wife has absolutely turned off it. You know, and I can understand.
My favorite example of rubbish instructions translated from the Japanese concerns a device. You know, these things you can get to slice vegetables. It's a V-shaped, very sharp blade, and you do that motion over it. There's great danger of cutting your fingers off. It's so sharp. So you have this gadget in which you impale a piece of a vegetable, and then it's got a protective shield around your fingers, and you operate that on the slicer. And the instructions, because inside the gadget that you protect your hand with are 3 prongs, and the instructions said about an onion: spit on it entirely with its root.
Well, yeah. All these things are laughable, aren't they?
What it meant.
Have you got a good joke?
That was as close as I'm going to get. You laughed anyway. What it meant was poke the onion's root end up against these 3 prongs, and it didn't know English, so it was obviously a translation into a second language.
There's a lot of work for teachers yet to do, including translation teachers, you know, language teachers, and so on.
That's my line.
Right, yeah.
Look at Dean coming in here. Rubbish instructions, ahem, Bible. Thank you, Dean.
I take it that we've got just 2 minutes left. Is that right?
We're less than that, I'm afraid. We've actually started to overrun. Okay. But I want to flag up next week, because next week we have another educationalist. He's a a sort of freelance professor. His name is Brian J. Ford. And you can hire him as a professor to do something for you. But his view, he's very strong about education. He thinks standards are slipping. He thinks we've got this mentality that nobody must fail, everybody must pass, and so all the exams would be made a lot easier. And I sympathize with that, I've got to admit. What's your view about streaming? You want comprehensive, David, but what's your view about streaming?
I can understand some subjects find it much easier, but the idea is not to make it easy on the children until they've probably properly sorted it. The idea is not to make it easy on the teachers, it's to make it easy on the children. I had to tolerate streaming in the school I taught, but I know from my own family going through the processes that streaming actually harmed them. If you took German, you were considered to be absolutely wonderful, and therefore you got in certain streams in the other subjects so that you could take a timetable that was compatible with. It's ridiculous. To actually force children to something they don't want to do is not very helpful.
Okay, so let's go down a level. Not streaming, but setting on a subject by subject basis. What do you think about that?
I cannot take away the teacher's freedom to organize the children in the way that is comfortable for everybody concerned. I can't do that. But I've always myself tried to have several activities going so that the able people, having finished the simple exercises I set them, they go on and help around the people who really find things difficult. And it's a way of getting people in a social situation, because otherwise they will not meet these people until they get to a job and they've got to get them to do something for the profit of the firm, you know, and they shouldn't be a part in the classroom.
Indeed. So the original intention of education was to make children into suitable employees. And usually that meant in a factory where the routines, the tasks were very simple. Yeah. But your proposal of programmed learning and machines delivering the next step for the pupil to attempt or reiterate a previous one if they haven't passed the test or whatever, go at their own progress. You know what that does? It makes every pupil a home learner. It does away with the teaching profession and with schools.
No, not, John, because the teachers have to write those programs, and it's only good teachers who will get good programs and good rewards for them.
Okay.
There's no chance of a teacher not being needed.
Right.
No chance.
So in that case, instead of the 20,000, it must be more like 200,000, I'm guessing a number of teachers that we have in secondary education in this country, England. We need the top one in each subject area to write the programs. Is that all?
No.
The rest can find other work?
No, it's not going to work for quite a while. And there must be
a gentlemen, just come to South Africa if you want to talk about education problems.
Well, I'm sure if it was introduced properly, it would solve a lot of problems, particularly the ones that arose during COVID.
Yeah, maybe it would also solve the problem that we've got for picking crops, because at the moment we can't get enough Europeans to do that, of course, as of Brexit. But all these redundant teachers would want that work, wouldn't they?
Right. Have we got time for one joke?
No. Okay, for your joke, yes.
A very quick one then.
Go on then.
I believe that the best jokes are those where people work it out themselves, the punchline. You get it? Okay, so have a go at this punchline. Spring is here. I'm so excited. Can you say what the punchline would be? Just anything.
Spring is here.
Spring is sprung, the grass is riz.
Now that's history, isn't it? No, here's the one. It's from the forum Agnostic. Spring is here. I'm so excited. I wet my plants.
Oh,
Not wet my pants.
yes,
Not
we
wet
got
my
it.
pants, but wet
Don't,
my plants.
don't,
And of
don't,
course, in the spring, they do water it. So the theory is to get the most unexpected answer.
yes, but
And that's why comedians are at the head of the
yes,
newspapers and discussion panels now, and everybody wants them. People like Ricky Gervais
yes,
is excellent at that sort of thing.
they are some of the cleverest people on the planet. I agree.
Absolutely.
And somebody like James O'Brien is the best discussion leader.
But don't explain a joke, David. Please don't explain it.
No, I wasn't explaining the joke. I was explaining the theory. Right? The theory is the joke is a production of the theory.
David, are you familiar with Trevor Noah?
No, I'm not. No.
He used to be the host of the Daily Show, South African comedian.
Yeah.
You will love him. Look up Trevor Noah, extremely smart.
Yeah, every country's got them, and I would look that up if I could.
Trevor Noah, as in Noah from the Bible. Brilliant, brilliant.
Excellent. Well, have a good joke evening with your family.
People,
thank you,
very
David.
much. Say goodbye, and thank you to our audience in the future and tonight. Thank you.
Thank you. Bye-bye.